Love it. So why don't we take a minute? Our guest speakers, our co-hosts will be introducing themselves in a minute, but let's go ahead since it's a small group this morning and I'll just call on a few folks to introduce themselves and we'll kind of go around. So why don't we next go to Kirsten as a staff member and then Paul.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kirsten Rust. I am the newest team member at United Way Next. I've been here since March, and I am our membership and engagement coordinator.
Thank you, Paul.
Hello, everybody. I'm Paul DeBazio, and I spent 20 years working in the United Way network. In the last 5 years, I've continued to be involved through United Way Next. I currently serve as the chair of the board for United Way Next. So I've been engaged in a lot of different aspects of it that I hadn't been just as a board member. And part of that's been able to go to many more of these types of social gatherings and other events that we've hosted. And I know I've seen Trent on a number of them. So Trent's been very engaged as well. And Amy, good to see you. I know we crossed paths a bit while I was at United Way Worldwide. So just great to see everybody.
Thanks, Paul. Vicky F., would you like to go next? And then Beth.
Well, happy to do so. I'm the only member of United Way Next who was present at the beginning of United Way in 1887. So it's delightful to be here. I finished 40 years with United Way in 1961, did interims in Columbus when Brian Gallagher left, and in Philadelphia for 6 months each. So that was delightful. I've had 3 careers since retiring from United Way. The first was coaching new college presidents, which I continue to do on a very minimal basis. The second was 10 years of teaching ethics to Xavier University MBA students. And the third was paying back a volunteer who bought an executive search firm, and he made me his part-time nonprofit expert in executive search. And I made sure that he did a lot of jobs for free.
Excellent. Now, wait, I want to ask you a question, Dick. You said you were the only member of United Way Next and the Retirees Association who was here at the beginning. And I thought you said 1897.
Oh,
1997, right?
no, I meant to say I was present at the beginning of United Way in 1887.
He was in Denver.
Also present for the beginning of the United Way Retirees Association.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. Beth.
Yeah. Carol's being serious. I think we all knew it was a joke. That was really funny, Dick. That was fabulous. And Dick's a hard one to follow, so I will make it short. I'm Beth Watson. I'm with United Way of Tarrant County. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer here, and I have been with United Way since 2017. And I'm excited to join you all. I have to say, Amy was the draw for me today. She and I got to know each other through various conferences when I first started, and she was a big part of welcoming me to the United Way family. And I was happy to see her on here, and thought I would come on to tell her hello. We get to see each other on LinkedIn, but we're across the country from each other. So happy
Awesome.
to meet you all. And of course, Carol and I'm going to say love each other. We have a mutual admiration society.
Yes, we do. We've done a lot together for sure. And that's great. I'm so glad that Amy was the reason that you were here today and clearly had an impact on your career. So that's great. Victor, we're doing introductions. And if you're able to unmute and introduce yourself, we'd love to hear from you. I know you just joined us.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Forgive the camera is not working on my Mac right now for some reason, but we're working on that. My name is Victor Millsap, formerly Vice President of Technology for United Way of New York City. Did that for about 10 years. Just recently left there 2024. Have spent the last year sitting on the couch as instructed by my 3 kids and wife to take a break and relax, and doing some volunteering right now, which is fun. And just happy to sort of be here and share and learn.
Sounds great, Victor. Thanks for joining. All
Thank
right. So now I think we can turn it over to our co-hosts, Trent Caldwell and Amy Dinofrio. And I love saying your last name because I have to really look at it in order to say it. So I'd like to turn it over to our co-hosts. And I just want to first say thank you to both Trent and Amy for their willingness to co-host the social hour. We are always looking for people who want to co-host a social hour so that we can add those to our rotation of different events that we host. We have so many different events and activities, but this one is meant to be casual and conversational. It's really all about you. So Trent and Amy, without further ado, I'll just hand it over for your self-introductions and take us from there.
Trent, we didn't talk about who was going first. Do you want to go first?
You did, and I can go ahead and kick off. My name is Trent Caldwell. I'm happy to be here today. I'm a relatively new member to United Way Next, but as Carol said, have loved being a part of all of the sessions and
I think he froze.
I wasn't sure if it was just my computer or not.
I didn't know if it was me or somebody or the whole thing. Okay.
So while we're waiting for Trent
Yep.
to come back,
Why don't I take over? Hello, everybody. Amy Dinofrio. I was in United Way for over 17 years. I am rather new to United Way Next, but happy to be here. Got to meet Carol a couple months ago, and we knew each other back when I was in the network, and so it's been great getting reacquainted. And Beth, thanks for the shout out. It's good to see a lot of you. I've crossed paths with most of you in my career, so good to be here. So Trent and I we're excited to talk to you today a little bit about the Consultant Collaborative and give you some info on that, and then have a little bit of a discussion. Trent, are you back with us?
I am, and I think one of our lessons is something to the effect of agility, and this was a great example of that. So I'm thankful to be back. And as far as my intro is concerned, I'll start from the top, in that I'm a relatively new member to United Way Next. Have been a part of the Consultant Collaborative Leadership team and have really enjoyed working with the team. And as far as my background is concerned, I worked with United Way of Greater Atlanta for roughly 4.5 years in a couple different roles, but really enjoyed my time as the enterprise project manager, which ended up really lending itself to my transition to the consulting space, where I continued to help nonprofits set up project management offices, as well as install all of the great things that may be able to support them in the project management space. And so happy to be here today, share some of the lessons from my time as a consultant, and hopefully have a really good conversation.
sounds great.
All right. So with that, these are the list of ideas that we thought would be helpful to begin conversations with. We'll talk about how important it is to keep learning, thinking about the importance of relationships and how those outlast any of our roles, thinking about being adaptive and not just efficient, as well as defining balance on our own terms, and having all of that lead to a good group discussion where we can learn from some of the experiences that you all have had, whether or not you're a consultant. I think that all of these will be adaptable and hopefully relevant. And so with that, I'll kick it on over to Amy.
Did you guys want me to run the poll real quick for you or hold on to that?
Go ahead and run the poll. I think you're good.
And the poll should have popped up for everyone. That first question is going to be, what is your current relationship with consulting? And then the second question is, which topic feels most relevant to your career right now?
If you can't see the poll on your screen, if you go down to the bottom right-hand corner and you see the More button and you hit that, you can bring the poll up on your own.
And it looks like we're at about 85% participation. And I know I'm not allowed to answer the poll, so it might just be excluding me. Awesome, and I'll go ahead and share the results with everyone.
Thanks, Ivy.
Mhm.
All right. So we're going to jump into the slides again. Ivy, if you'll go to the next slide, that's great. So one of the things that Trent and I wanted to do is kind of share with you a little bit, I'll call it behind the scenes of the life of a consultant, and just kind of talk through what our experiences have been. And then since we're such a small group, we'll also do some discussion at the end. And if you have thoughts as we're going, please feel free to put things in the chat. One of the biggest things I think overall is don't ever think you stop learning. I am one of the people who say, you know, I always stay curious. I'm not going to be done learning until I'm, you know, up in heaven and my life is over. And so I always want to learn. I always want to stay curious. And that doesn't mean sitting in a classroom or going and doing workshops and things. It means sitting down with your clients or your clients' staff and having a conversation with them and learning about it and learning more about what they're doing and hearing from them and hearing their experiences. Um, Learning doesn't leave you after you leave a formal role. And I think the retired folks on here can attest to that. The people who have changed jobs can attest to that. But when you become a consultant, you don't necessarily leave a formal role. You just have your own formal role. And so your learning evolves, and your learning probably should evolve more because you're learning about different things so that you can be a better consultant. And still, you know, one of the things that I think the power of learning and the agileness and the ability to do it in these uncertain times is so important. And being able to, you know, be able to find that client or that organization that teaches you something new or gives you a new piece of information or gives you a different way of doing something. Many times since I left United Way, I've been consulting with some local United Ways, and you know, I go in and I think, you know, I think one thing, and by the time we're done, they've taught me something. And you know, it doesn't need to be a big thing, but it's something that keeps me learning and it keeps my materials and thought process better. And so that's one of the things, and it changes your lens too. It gives you a different way of looking at things from somebody else's different perspective. Trent, I want to welcome you into the conversation. See if you have anything else you want to add before we move forward.
Just want to, continue to bolster on that notion that you lifted up of like reflection and how important that is. I think that has been one of the biggest boosts to my learning, is making sure that that's a repeatable practice, whether that's debriefing from a meeting, whether that is at the end of a client engagement, making sure that I have that time to do a little bit of a retrospective and say, okay, here's some lessons learned that I can take away from this. Here are some things that I may do a little bit better or double down on if they work particularly well. And I would also say that as in doing that transition, when I was in a role with United Way, there may be some things that are prescribed in terms of training, but I really had to create my own curriculum as a consultant and make sure that I am carving out time for things like learning AI, being able to upskill on some of the things like the back end of being a consultant, where before I didn't have to do quite as much accounting or marketing and what have you. So just really being able to expand the ways in which well, I learn as well. And so with that, we can take a look at the next slide. And that's really a great note there really at the top, thinking about the fact that relationships outlast any role. And I found that this has been more apparent. I knew it throughout my career, but it's become much more apparent as a consultant. When I made the transition from United Way, most of my immediate business was because of the relationships that I had established in the 10 plus years prior, even from before the United Way days. And so I've really taken an approach to thinking about relationships as a long-term investment and thinking about each touch that happens, whether it's an email, whether it's an opportunity to present, whether it's a quick conversation, all of those are opportunities to make an investment in those relationships and to create a brand that ultimately will lead to that last bullet there around reputation and um, making it a practice to do a little bit of an audit around relationships at the end of each month has also been something that's really helpful in regards to not, thinking about what I need to ask somebody or what I need to get from any particular person, but to really say, how am I building authentic relationships? How am I intentionally carving out time to make sure that I stay in touch with folks? And I have a kind of personal CRM that I use to make sure that I send somebody a text message, that I just give them a call, that I send them an article that I think is relevant to what they're doing and trying to actually add value in ways that make sense for those individuals. And using things like LinkedIn really does, I found that to be one of the best tools just for kind of seeing what folks are doing that I may have otherwise not been able to know about, and make sure that what I share with them is ultimately relevant. And so those are my thoughts on relationships. I'm sure that y'all have joined United Way Next because you see value in that as well. And this is another great platform for keeping everybody in the know and being able to build after while within the United Way's four walls. And so I'll kick it over to Amy to add any, thoughts or reflections you may have.
Thanks, Trent. It was like I planted Beth in this conversation for this next example I'm going to give. You never know where the people you worked with 5 years ago might show up. And so you want to be able to, and how they'll remember you. And so you want to be able to say that you had a really good relationship with that person. And, even though sometimes relationships grow out because jobs change, roles change, you still remember that person and you still see them on now social media where everybody sees everybody. But you're still able to remember back to that person and the impact. And for you on the other side, you want to make sure that you don't, as my parents used to tell me, burn bridges. So you want to make sure you keep the relationship strong and you don't do anything to hurt that relationship. And one of the biggest things with consultants, because you're taking care of your own business, basically, you want to keep those relationships strong so that they have the same trust and reassurance that they do with you, they did with you in the past. And so want to go to the next slide when we're going to talk a little bit about being adaptive and not just efficient. Sometimes the job changes midway are tough, and sometimes you have to kind of be able to pivot and do things that are a little bit different than your normal day to day, and your schedule may change or your routine may change. I'm one of those people that I like my routines. I like my morning routine. I like my night routine. So when those things have to pivot or change, it's hard to adjust. So you need to be ready for that. Working across different leadership styles, technologies, and team norms. You may walk into an organization that isn't aligned exactly with the way you're aligned, or you may walk into an organization that's technologies may be a little outdated. And so you have to work with that. You may walk in where the norms are different. And unless you're there to change them, unless they need you to help change the norms and change the culture, you kind of have to work with that. So you have to be able to be adaptable and open to doing that. Embrace trial and error thinking. Be okay with, trying something and it not working, and being okay to name that to the organization. We're going to try this. It may not work, but if not, we'll come back, we'll learn from it, and we'll fix it. being able to just kind of look across the organization and be able to be okay with things not going perfectly. So many times, I think consultants get locked in on this perfect proposal that they did. And, being most of my time in HR at United Way, we all know that our days are planned out and that day can shift in 5 seconds or less if something happens. And so you have to be able to adapt and move forward, and you can't let it bring you down, because if you let it bring you down or you let it dishevel you, then the whole thing gets messed up. I want to bring Trent in to see if he has any additional thoughts on being adaptive and not just efficient.
Yeah, I think you made some really great points, Amy. And in the project management space, we say that, the minute that you create a plan, it's wrong. And we learn to be okay with that ultimately. And there's a whole discipline around agility and all of that great stuff. But I think for me in this space, what it means is giving room for the unknowns, giving room for change, but I still try and build a little bit of structure in that, such that it helps me still keep that baseline. And whether that means having a part of my day where I sit down and kind of take note and take stock of all of the new changes, all of the new risks, and just try and map out a what if. Those things help me tremendously, even if the what if doesn't manifest. Going through that practice of being able to say, okay, I know that I can ready myself for all of the things that may present themselves today, and then doing a debrief at the end of the day to see how those things lined up. That's helped me tremendously in terms of being adaptive and just kind of managing the sea of change that happens as a consultant. And so let's take a look at the next slide. All right. And so that is a perfect segue to thinking about the way in which I define balance, because as a part of that practice, and a reason why that practice became true for me is because burnout is real, right? You can get burned out on the myriad number of changes that present themselves. You can almost take on too many opportunities. I know I did that when I first became a consultant. I was saying yes to a lot of things because I wanted to make sure nothing passed me by. But there is a limit, and being able to know what that limit is helpful before it presents itself and tells you what the limit is. I've been in both spaces, and now I see that last bullet of boundary setting as a true leadership skill, being able to understand how much can you really take on and how much can you do well by taking all of those things on. And the structure for me does help. I'm able to look at things like my calendar on a Sunday and say, okay, do a quick calendar audit. How are we doing on having time to just debrief in between one meeting to the next, to have those meaningful conversations that are energizing for me, to make sure that there's things like a opportunity to hang out with friends, family. So thinking about things on a more holistic through a holistic lens has helped me tremendously. And that doesn't mean that I always get it right. There's some weeks where it's just client work. There's some weeks where I say, okay, let's try and make this a little lighter on delivery and have some you time. But thinking about that and just being intentional has been a tremendous boost to making sure that I don't experience burnout, and really try and define balance on terms that make sense for me. I want to pass the mic to Amy to share any insights you may have on defining balance.
Yeah, so I struggled with this in the beginning of my career. I didn't have a lot of balance, and I paid for that, but I also learned from it. And I think one of the things that I have really done is set myself up with time slots. And so I know, and my current job, our philanthropy is 100% remote. So I work out of my house 100% unless I'm traveling, which is at least once a month, but still. So I have times where I'm in my office here in my house, and then I have times where I go and do other things in the other part of the house, and I don't take my work all over my house. And so trying to just step away and step out, that way you don't get burnt out. I also have a pretty good exercise plan in place that I like to do, and be able to just enjoy the outdoors and walk away, and even walk away during the day. Make sure you're taking those breaks during the time, whether you're traveling to an organization maybe and you're presenting, or you're on virtual, making sure you have those times where you can step off. And for Mr. DeBazio, I will say I like to take time at night to watch the Sox try to get themselves back up to at least second place here, but I don't know that they're going to do it. They beat the Blue Jays to help the Yankees, but I'm not really sure what that did for us. But anyway, it's great to be able to just take time, set your boundaries, and hold tight to them. And it's funny that once you hold tight to those boundaries, people will respect those, and they will stay within, because they want you to be just as good. Trent?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. And just in terms of finding those things that do energize you, I think that was another part of finding balance and being able to make those things an equal priority. So with that, I think we can transition on over to the group exercise, and we have enough folks here where I think we could stay in this forum, and we don't have to do our breakouts, but we did want to offer some time to kind of go around the room and share anything that may have sparked a particular insight or idea from the earlier parts of the presentation, something that you'd like to add, a question, and then have these couple of jump off points as well. And so the first one was just kind of asking what a skill or mindset may be that you developed at United Way that you still use today. And then the second one is just kind of thinking about if you were to give someone advice about navigating their next chapter, whether it's consulting, whether it's elevating in a leadership role, whether it's even transitioning and saying, hey, I'm stepping back from work altogether. What's one lesson that you share? And so we can ignore the notes down there and just kind of transition into conversation as ideas may have sparked.
Ivy, could we bring the slide down so we can all see each other again? Thank you. Well, first of all, Amy and Trent, thank you for that presentation. And I don't know if it was said at the beginning, so I'm going to just mention this. Both Trent and Amy are on the Consultant Collaborative Leadership team. And we had specifically said, let's feature that in the social hour, hoping it would inspire others who might not know about it. So that was part of the idea of having this type of a kind of a little topic to get us started. So from there, I'm just going to let y'all share your thoughts. Paul.
I don't mind going first. So one of the things when I spent 20 years at United Way, but I spent 15 years prior to that in the for-profit sector in sales. And when I transitioned to the nonprofit sector, there was a leader who gave me some great advice right from the beginning. And what he said was, and my title at the sales job was regional manager. And he said, you're going to manage people, but I need you to actually lead people. So there was a difference between management and leadership. And so as a skill set, that ability to be a leader, that does continue on in any sort of walk of life. It does continue on into sort of the work I do in consulting, which is limited. I do some part-time consulting, but you need to go in with that leadership mindset. So it's about leading people. So it's a little bit different than managing. Trent, your world being project management, there's a lot of management in that. There's things that have to happen in sequence and such. That might be a little bit different, but that would be the skill I would think I really learned and honed. And in my 20 years at United Way was leadership and those skills of leadership. And then being able to apply those in my day-to-day life too. Volunteer boards that I'm on, other volunteer activities that I do, family relationships, even sometimes I'm the decision maker in the family, the whole family. My siblings can't make decisions. So I just, hey, I'll lead this thing. Let's take it on. But that's just, I think, a skill that transfers from whatever work you've done into, if you are looking to be a consultant or if you're consulting, would one I would recommend. You kind of try to differentiate those two things.
One of the things I wanted to mention quickly that I really resonated with was like the idea of a calendar audit or balance. We're actually kind of doing that in United Way Next for this year's 2026 event process. Also plugging that if you guys want to be a speaker, the application is now live. But we really want to be intentional about the way that we're planning our just internal calendar next year around board meetings and work group meetings and events, and making sure that we have plenty of time, not only to make sure that we're giving a good experience to the people attending our events, but to our speakers and our volunteers, and also plenty of time to promote them and make sure that they're good events. So we're trying to be really intentional with all of that this year.
I'd offer two thoughts. First is taken from the life of Brian. I learned when I was doing my United Way work professionally, as is sung in the life of Brian, look on the bright side of life. You get more done with positive comments, positive leadership than being a wet blanket. Always look for the things that are good and assume that most of the things that aren't so good are going to take care of themselves. The second is a point that everyone who's spoken has made, and that's be flexible, learn new skills. I don't know if any of you know what carbon paper is, but when I started working, when we wanted to make copies, we either used carbon paper when we typed things on our manual typewriters, or we used a thermofax machine, which was a heat-sensitive copying device. A lot has been introduced since then. Along the way, I was fortunate to be hired to be part of the beta test of Perplexity AI. And that has given me a lot of experience. Perplexity is now the #2 AI on the market. It's an AI that I find very functional and somewhat accurate. So those are my thoughts.
Love it.
I wanted to share two things as well. The first one is listening. In my experience, yes, we all listen, we all hear, but then at the same time, we don't hear, right? And so it's important, obviously, to listen, but the real importance that came for me in my tenure was listening for the things that aren't being said, right? Because, you're trying to vision out technology, you're trying to vision out the future, and you get in a room with a bunch of people at different levels. And a lot of times the folks at the sort of manager, director, above levels do a lot of talking, and some of the other folks don't speak a lot, or they don't get a chance to talk. But it's always trying to listen for those things that aren't being said, so you can really kind of understand what's going on. The second thing is feeling. I learned a long time ago, I was a consultant before I went to United Way, and I learned a long time ago that, folks will only remember a certain percentage of what you say in a meeting, in a presentation, whatever. But they sure in heck are going to remember how you made them feel during that meeting, etc. I have people who walk up to me on the street who may have been interns 8 years ago, and they're like, "Hey, hi, how are you?" and etc. And of course, I have no idea who they are. I've forgotten. But it just means that whatever the experience was, it was a positive one, right? And so where you can, always remember that, it's the feeling people are going to walk out with. And it's not possible all the time. I'm one of those folks who doesn't believe in, who believes some bridges need to be burnt or blown up. But at the same time, it's listening for what's not being said and making sure that you can leave people out of a meeting, etc., with a positive feeling.
Victor, thank you for that. That actually, you just encapsulated probably better than I would have said it, a lot of what I was thinking, and to the point of exactly what it was about Amy, that when I came into my first United Way conference was a couple months after I had started with United Way, and there's all these people and they all know each other and they don't know me at all. And it was how she made, I'm going to say everybody, because everybody who came in contact with her thought you were her favorite person. And it's how she made you feel. I have no idea what she may have said to me. I have no idea, what the knowledge may have been, but that was good. She did. Let's see. I have a unique, or it's usually people say it's unique, but professional background that I started as a consultant. So I spent 20 years as a human resources consultant before I came to United Way or any other company. And so it's actually how I came here, is this United Way was a client of mine. And so I have the consulting thing down. That's what I was taught in my professional career. And so I think some of I completely agree with everything that was already shared about ways to transition into consulting. That it's very good. I think one of the things Victor said, and I would say it in a little different way, but the same information, is a diplomacy. So the listening to all sides, to listening to people who may not have a voice, can be really important. Anytime I would conduct investigations or anything like that, that's the idea, is you're supposed to be getting those voices that may not be heard otherwise. And then I think that transitions really well into relationships as well. So that relationship that was already talked about transfers there. I think the other thing that between nonprofit management in general and for-profit or consulting is that in nonprofit management, your client, if you will, never pays you. The people we're serving aren't the people that are paying us. The donor is actually often our client, and we're serving somebody else. And when you're working with a project with a company or something, the people paying you are usually your client. And so it's just an interesting thing to go back and forth between, and even it was easily 6 months before when I started working with United Way, before I stopped looking at what time it was when I answered my phone, because I was no longer billing in quarter-hour increments. But I had spent my whole career looking at the time when I picked up the phone to answer somebody's question so that I could bill them. But it was very different.
I love that, Beth. I love everything that you all have said. It's great.
Something that really resonated with me, and a skill that I think I gained in my time at United Way. I worked for a very small United Way, so I had to do a lot of muscle building in terms of my adaptability and perseverance, and especially that one of those first slides that you shared about always learning and being open to those new experiences and new ideas. That's definitely something that my time with United Way really honed that skill set for me.
Thanks, Kirsten. I think I'm maybe the only person who hasn't shared. I'm not sure if there was anyone else, but I just was thinking as we're talking, some things that really resonated with what you all said is that sense of that relationships matter, and the sense of belongingness and creating that, and how important that is to how people feel. And the listening piece, think especially in my role at United Way Next, I start every meeting by listening, and then I hear all the things they're talking about, and I immediately connect all these dots that allow for them to see the value of Next. And it's just really intuitive. And I think that came through my United Way career when I was working with so many different people across the county, and every day it was someone new and different. So it could be a CEO of a company, it could be a director of an agency, it could be a resident who's called in because they can't get through to 211 to get what they need, and just listening to what people need and connecting them to the things that would help them in that moment, whatever it is, good, bad, doesn't, it could be they're calling for some need, or it could just be, hey, I just want to connect with a great person. Who would that be? So the listening and the connecting piece, And then over the last 3 years, and I still feel like I'm with United Way because of us being the Alumni Association, the sense of this belongingness and developing a culture and like really seeing that show up, I think is so, so important. And for me personally, I've realized recently, because our staff did a Strengths Finder assessment, and my strengths shifted from 5 years ago to some new strengths showed up. And the person who's helping us with that like conducted the workshop, took my strengths from 5 years ago and current and put them into some AI thing that produced information. And the information was clear to me as I read it that my shift was a good thing, and it helped showcase how I have developed as a leader, which kind of goes back to Paul, like showing up as a leader and being the leader, not just managing the day-to-day, but in the consistency and ensuring that people felt that sense of we're treated the same and it's an equitable community and inclusive. And I just was really like, wow, I'm surprised at how much that changed. But I think that was cultivated at United Way, and it was really honed at United Way Next. So.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I found myself taking notes throughout, and so many things resonated. I think, in particular, for me, that aspect of listening to the things not said, and sometimes, especially as a consultant, I've actually started with Accenture as a business analyst, so I had a very similar kind of framing in terms of understanding what a consultant may be intended to do, and having all those best practices in your tool belt, but listening and being able to find the solutions, being able to uplift those voices who may not necessarily have the ready seat at the table. I've made it a practice, but just hearing it today, it's going to be something that I continue to double down on, and maybe reimagine how I do that through a consultant lens. It's different when you're within the four walls and can kind of control more of the agendas and what have you. But I do think that there's a space to maybe in those, as you were saying, in those investigative audits, when you're trying to figure out what the problem is, make sure that the voices that may be closest to the issue are able to have a voice.
One of the things that Trent just reminded me of is I have a very weird career road path before my time at United Way. And sometimes I don't think all of it quite applies to what we do in nonprofits and things like that. But he just reminded me that I was a resident assistant in college. So I had I kind of oversaw 3 different dorms, technically 4, I think 12 floors of interesting college kiddos in Florida. And for the training to be an RA, we had to go through sensitivity training. We had to have what were called ICs, or intentional conversations, with every single resident on our floor, where we did have to spend at least 5 minutes with them, just learning about them, hearing what they've got going on. How are they experiencing their freshman year? Are they having difficulties? And I do remember that thinking back, that's probably where a lot of like the feelings of trying to help people belong and kind of be a part of a community. Like, we had to throw events and get people at those events and do all of those things that now I'm seeing actually really connect to the work that I'm doing at United Way Next. And for me, that role was also before I was diagnosed with like my neurodivergencies or my chronic illnesses and my disabilities and things like that. And it's now becoming clear to me that like that probably was almost the very first time that I got into my advocacy work for accessibility and inclusion and all of those things. That honestly, if Trent, you didn't just share what you shared, I don't know that I would have ever made that connection before.
Thanks, Ivy.
Right. So I think we've done a great job, and thank you all for sharing. I feel like I'm gonna go back and listen to the recording again myself just to make sure I didn't miss anything. I think we've covered most of the by way of just the conversation here. We had those three buckets that Ivy dropped in the chat. Anything that may have inspired or aha moments from the session, skills or mindsets that were developed at the United Way or in other places in our careers that we still use today. And then the last one was kind of thinking about if you would give someone advice about navigating their next chapter, what would that one lesson be? So if there's anything else y'all would like to add on any of those, we can pause for a moment. Otherwise, we can just share a few closing thoughts and make sure that there's room for all the good housekeeping stuff, because there's more that's going to come up from UW Next.
Hey, I'll jump in on that next chapter thing, man. I would say to you that pausing, taking a breath, taking some time, particularly if you've been in your career for a long time, is really, really important. My family had to really threaten me to get me to sit down and on the couch and watch YouTubes, because I went through a phase of, no, I got to get right back into it. Got to get back on the horse. Got to keep going. And they were sort of like, Dad, you've done this for a long time. We got this, right? I say my kids, but they're all in their 30s, etc. But it's being able just to pause, to it'll be frustrating, etc. But being able just to sit and think about what it is you want to do next, if you want to do anything, right? And also just celebrating what you have done and what you have accomplished. And sometimes you don't see all of that when you're in it. And so even if you're just, even if you're not retiring, even if you're in between jobs, there's that importance of just pausing, sitting still, and looking back and saying, you know what? Damn, I did a great job there, right? And then, preparing yourself for moving on.
Excellent advice. I love that you talk about celebrating what you've accomplished, because I think we sometimes forget that. And, within United Way Next, we have many members who have joined as now United Way alumni whose jobs maybe have changed in the last 12 months, some without choice. And I think it's difficult to watch as they sit and be still and allow themselves to acknowledge, the past. They're looking at it like this is a bad thing, and they're forgetting this is opening a door for what's next. But celebrating and really acknowledging what you've accomplished in all those years, whether it's 3 years or 5 years or 20 years, is just incredibly important. So thanks for that, Victor. I remember you and I met and you told me you were taking the pause, so I'm glad to hear you did it.
Yeah, that really resonated with me as well. I took what I call my mom pause after I left my previous United Way role. I was a CEO of a small United Way and experienced some major burnout after welcoming my daughter and trying to juggle it all. And that pause, I think, was one of the best things that I could do for me.
I thought of you right away, Kirsten, when you said the pause. That's right. Anyone else? So we're down to just the last 7 minutes, and we want to be mindful of everyone's time since this is morning and many of you are probably taking off to go do something next for another meeting or have another Zoom scheduled. So Ivy, I'm going to just ask if you have any general housekeeping things you want to share before I invite Paul DeBazio to talk a little bit about our 35th anniversary. And Paul, if you would rather I do it, I'm happy to, but I just thought it'd be great if you could extend the invitation for what's going on for that. So Ivy, I'll let you go first and then Paul.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. A, thank you guys for showing up for our social hour sponsored by Front Stream. B, I just want to let you guys know that we do have a consultant collaborative event coming up that Amy and Trent will tell you a little bit more about. The launch party is on 9:30. And then we do just have 12 events left for the rest of the year. So if you guys are interested in participating in any of those, you can find them on our website, and I'll send a follow-up email after this, as well as our RFP did just launch in case you guys are interested in being presenters or even social hour hosts next year. And then there's usually like a 3-question, 30-second survey after you close out a Zoom, just to make sure that we are hosting great events for you and that we are giving you guys a good member experience. And I think that's all of the things from me.
Thank you. So why don't we go Paul first, and then Amy and Trent, if you have anything else you want to share at the end.
Well, I definitely want to start by thanking Amy and Trent for taking the time to host the social hour. It's really important that our members are engaged, and that means some people need to raise their hand and offer their time, their experiences. So I appreciate both of what you've done today, Amy and Trent. So thanks for that. I'm just going to mention quickly, you'll see in the staff members, they're where you look at them in the rooms they're in, they've got these 35th anniversary United Way Next logos up, right? So we are celebrating our 35th anniversary. As Dick noted, he's one of the founding members. Dick has been here from the beginning. It was the Retiree Association. It is now sort of morphed into what's United Way Next. And it's about what's next in your career, whether you're fully retired or not. Again, this session makes a lot of sense. But one of the things that we're doing is asking folks to make an additional contribution this year for our 35th anniversary. And we're doing it as in general, a tribute to others. Who are the leaders that sort of carved out your path and your career at United Way, helped you the most, that you might want to give a tribute gift to. And I know, Amy, I prefer the wall being the green monster, but we do have a tribute wall where we're recognizing folks who've made these tribute gifts. And some folks are getting at the $350 level to utilize $350, but really a $35 gift. And if you've got 2 or 3 leaders that really made a difference in your career that you want to recognize, 3 $35 gifts would be great. So anything that you might consider doing, it's a tribute to those that really built the United Way network and built something that we could come into, have good careers with, learn from, and continue to build our own skills. And so it's a recognition of the folks that I stand on the shoulders of Dick Aft and others, right? So who helped you move ahead is what we're looking to see if people want to make a tribute gift. So
Thanks, Paul. And cheers to 35 years, right?
5 years.
With that, I'll turn it back over to Trent and Amy to bring this home.
Right. So, yes, just as a continuation of all the great things that have been shared today and the agenda that's going to shape the rest of the year, just wanted to lift up the United Way Next Consultant Collaborative, which is going to be kicking off in official capacity next week. And that's going to be, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that should be on the 30th from 1 to 2 p.m. And you can log in, register, and if you cannot attend, that's okay. We still encourage everyone to register. Feel free to pass this along to anyone in your network who may be consulting now or interested in it, because we think that there's going to be a ton of opportunity in terms of connection, learning, and there's going to be plenty of explanation of all of the great things that have been cooked up over the last 3 months or so, and building upon the work that Carol was already doing with the collaborative foundations in regards to referrals and what have you. And so we just want to lift that up and hope that we can see all of you. I may have frozen there for a moment, but I hope that we can see all of you next Tuesday. And even if we don't see you next Tuesday, that you are aware of the collaborative and join the wait list. Amy?
Thanks, Trent. I'll just say it was great to see you all. Glad you're well. We hope to see you next week on the 30th for our launch. But if we can't, please stay in touch. And thanks again for having us.
Thank you, Amy. And thanks, Trent. You guys did an awesome job. And thanks to everybody for being here this morning. It was so great to see everyone. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Take care, all.
Thanks, everyone.